The first thing Jessica Owusu registers is the beeping steady, mechanical, too precise to be anything but a hospital monitor. Her body aches in places she can't name, like bruises bloomed beneath her skin overnight. Her mouth is dry, her head heavy, and the world before her is a muted blur of shadows. She blinks, once, twice, but nothing changes. Darkness stretches out in every direction. Panic sets in. Then, voices, distant at first, one calm and clinical. A doctor, maybe. Words like concussion, miraculous, temporary blindness float past her, disconnected and strange. But they stick. She's blind. For now. 3 days, the doctor had said. 3 days, and her vision will return. She tries to speak, to ask something, but her lips feel sealed shut. Her body, too, is betraying her. Then comes another voice, familiar. Low, her husband Malik. She's blind now, he says, barely above a whisper. I'll handle the accounts before she finds out. Jessica stills. Her heartbeat, once slow and struggling, now slams against her ribs. She tells herself she misheard. The accident, the medication, they're clouding her mind. She must have misunderstood. But Malik's voice doesn't lie. It tightens when he's nervous, gets clipped at the edges. And now it is sharp as glass. I can move everything tonight. She won't know, he says, before a soft click ends the call. Jessica's fingers curl against the sheets, her knuckles white beneath the covers. Her breathing evens out. She doesn't move, doesn't speak. She lets the room believe she's unconscious, lets Malik believe she's helpless. But her mind is racing, cataloguing every word, every pause, every shift in his voice. She isn't blind, not really, and she certainly isn't deaf. He sits beside her now, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. His touch is tender, but her skin crawls. The man she trusted with her life, the man who once vowed to protect her, is plotting something behind that warm, practiced smile. It's not the betrayal itself that stings the most. It's the ease with which he speaks of it, as if this was always the plan, as if her accident was a gift. Jessica lies still, unmoving beneath the white sheets, swallowed by the scent of antiseptic and the weight of realization. She won't confront him, not yet. Let him think she's vulnerable. Let him believe he has the upper hand. In 3 days her vision will return, but she won't wait that long to start seeing the truth. Betrayal doesn't always announce itself in a storm. Sometimes it tiptoes in through a whisper into a hospital room beside a bed where trust once lived. Jessica doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. She simply listens and decides to watch, unseen. Jessica Owusu built everything she has from the ground up, born in the bustling heart of Lagos, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs and still found time to braid her daughter's hair at night. Jessica learned early that strength wasn't loud, it was consistent. Her father had disappeared when she was barely 2, leaving her mother with nothing but a child, a cracked wedding photo, and a stubborn refusal to break. That legacy shaped Jessica. She swore she'd never be blind to betrayal, never allow herself to fall asleep beside someone who might one day turn their back on her, the way her father had. Trust, for Jessica, was never freely given. It was earned, brick by brick. Like the company she founded and scaled into one of the top tech startups in Atlanta a decade ago. She was pitching software out of cafes and coding through the night, in borrowed office space. Now, she was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar data security firm, A regular on tech panels and Forbes lists. Her life was built on foresight, discipline, and making damn sure she never owed her success to anyone but herself. And yet she married Malik. He had swept in like a warm breeze during a cold season. Handsome, magnetic, and endlessly charming, he seemed different from the men who usually tried to orbit her world. Where others saw her as a challenge or a conquest, Malik appeared captivated by her mind. He brought wine to her coding sprints, read her pitch decks, watched her rehearse for her TED Talk with the enthusiasm of a true believer. She still remembers the standing ovation and Malik, front row, beaming, mouthing, "That's my wife." Back then, love had felt like partnership. When he offered to leave his career in investment banking to support her vision full-time, Jessica resisted at first. It felt too good, too fast, but he reassured her, said he wanted to build something with her. She gave in. They married a year later in a quiet ceremony in Accra, with only her mother and a few close friends. No flashy headlines, just the two of them and what felt like a shared dream. But somewhere along the line, something shifted. The man who once proofread her board presentations began asking more questions about her shares. Harmless at first, curiosity, even pride. But over time, the tone changed. He wanted to know the details of her investor contracts, how her equity was structured, what would happen if she sold. He began making subtle jokes about all that money in her name and how he was the one holding the home together. She brushed it off, laughed with him, told herself it was normal. Stress, insecurity, a passing phase. Then came the tension over the pre-NUP. Jessica had insisted on it. From the start, she was clear. She would share her life, not her company. Malik had agreed graciously, even calling it a smart business move, kissing her hand when they signed it. But years later, it became a sore spot. During arguments, he'd bring it up like a wound that never healed. "You never trusted me from the start," he'd mutter. "I gave up everything for you." She began to wonder if that was true. He give up his career, or did he cash out of a stressful world and tie himself to hers, betting on her future? They had no children. By mutual choice, they told others. But now, in the quiet of this hospital room, Jessica isn't so sure. It was ever mutual. Maybe he didn't want to split the pie any further. Maybe children would have complicated the escape plan now. Lying in this bed with her eyes closed but mind sharply awake, Jessica replays every flash of their life together through a new lens. The candlelit dinners feel like rehearsals. His cheering at her TED Talk sounds like performance, and his gentle support begins to look more like strategy. Was she always just the investment? The betrayal cuts deeper because it doesn't come from a stranger. It comes from the man who kissed her forehead before interviews, who poured champagne when she landed her first $1 million client, who said, "I'm proud of you," like he meant it. She gave him access to her heart and her accounts. Now she wonders if the former was just the price of the latter dot. Jessica can't let this go, not because of pride, though pride hums angrily in her chest, but because it would mean everything her mother taught her was for nothing, because it would mean her worst fear, the one she thought she had outrun, had caught up with her in the form of a smile she loved and a voice she once trusted. No, she won't be blind to betrayal. Not again, not ever. The steady hum of the hospital. Room fades as Jessica hones in on the sound of Malik's voice just outside her door. He thinks she's asleep, or worse. Still blind and unaware, but she can hear every word. Each one landing like a dagger in slow motion. She won't know, Keisha Malik says, low but urgent, her signatures still valid. Get the docs ready before she gets discharged. Jessica's breath catches Keisha, her assistant, the one who once brought her herbal tea during overnight coding sessions, who stayed late to prep investor decks, who hugged her when the IPO rumors first started swirling. That same Keisha on the phone with her husband, discussing forged documents, exploiting her vulnerable state, or at least what they think is her vulnerable state. Jessica turns her head slightly toward the window, letting the soft morning light wash over her bandaged face. Her vision isn't perfect, a foggy smear of shapes and light, but it's improving. Slowly, the doctors were right. Within hours, she'll see everything. But for now, she sees enough. The outline of Malik's body pacing outside her room. The dark blur of betrayal, no longer hiding in the shadows. She presses a hand to her chest, steadying the sharp ache that's more emotional than physical. She should feel shattered, and a part of her does. But something colder, harder, begins to rise from within her, a resolve sharpened by years of climbing through a world that never made space for women like her unless they forced it. This isn't just about heartbreak anymore. This is war. The phone beside her bed feels heavier than it should as she lifts it. Her fingers still tremble, but her voice is calm when she speaks. Call Tund, her private lawyer, answers on the second ring, voice drowsy but alert. Jessica, are you okay? No, she says softly, but I will be. I need you to do something for me. Anything. Tell Malik you're going on sabbatical. Emergency family leave. I don't care. Make it believable. Just disappear for a bit. Don't contact me in public. Not even through your office. Silence. On the other end. Then, Jess. What's going on? I can't explain everything now, she replies, swallowing the tightness in her throat. But Malik is trying to take the company, and he's working with Keisha. There's a long pause, and when Tund speaks again, his tone is all steel. What do you need? Evidence, she says. Everything. I need time to act blind, to let them think they're in control. Let them get bold. I want emails, phone logs, paper trails. You know where to look. You're sure? I'm sure, she whispers. Jessica ends the call and leans back against the pillow, pulse pounding like a war drum in her ears. She hears the door creak open. Malik steps inside, his cologne hitting her first, the same scent he wore on their honeymoon in Marrakesh. It makes her stomach turn now. Hey baby, he says, his voice dripping with practiced concern. How are you feeling? She forces her features to soften, blinking aimlessly at the ceiling. Everything's still dark, she murmurs. He sighs, taking her hand like he's done 100 times before. She lets him, for now. Don't worry, he says gently, brushing his thumb across her knuckles. I'm here. I'll take care of everything. She doesn't flinch, doesn't pull away. She nods slowly, even as the walls around her begin to feel smaller, closer, more dangerous. Let him believe the lie. Let him keep thinking he's ahead. Because the moment Jessica fully sees again, she won't just be looking. She'll be watching, calculating, setting the trap, and when it finally closes, neither Malik nor Keisha will see it coming. Coming home should have been a comfort, a return to safety after trauma. But as Jessica stepped through the familiar threshold of her modern, meticulously designed Atlanta home, guided gently by Malik's hand, she felt none of that. Instead, the house felt like a stage set, too curated, too clean, too still. A place where betrayal could echo freely off polished floors and glass walls. She kept her expression neutral, her eyes unfocused. She played her role so well, even she began to feel swallowed by it. Malik's performance was Oscar-worthy. "Watch your step, baby," he said, ushering her to the couch like she was made of glass. "I made your favorite stew, and I've adjusted all your meds." His voice was soft, laced with concern, but Jessica caught something beneath it: impatience, calculation. He took her phone, saying he'd filter the noise while she recovered. He set meal times, controlled her dosage, answered her calls. On the surface, it was devotion, but underneath, it was orchestration. He wasn't supporting her, he was managing her, and she let him. Because every moment he thought she was powerless was another moment he exposed the depths of his deceit. On day one, while pretending to doze in the sunroom, she heard his voice slip through the slightly ajar office door. "I'll ease the board into it," Malik was saying to someone on speakerphone. "The transfer of power will look like a wellness leave at first, smooth, controlled." Jessica clenched her jaw, counting backward from 10. He wasn't just stealing from her accounts, he was trying to steal her, her company, her legacy. Everything she had spent a lifetime building brick by stubborn brick. And he was doing it with the poise of someone who had planned this long before the accident. By day 2, the house no longer felt like her home. It was a holding cell, an illusion of comfort designed to lull her into silence. Keisha arrived that afternoon, her heels clicking boldly across the tile. No hesitation, no guilt. Jessica remained curled on the couch, motionless behind her sunglasses. She could see more now, fuzzy outlines, shadows, light. She could tell when Keisha slinked into her office chair, sipped wine from her glass, and laughed like a woman who believed she'd already won. "You know," Keisha said, with a breathy chuckle, "I thought this would feel messier, but it's almost elegant." "She signed whatever I put in front of her," Malik replied coolly. "She still trusts me. Or at least, she thinks she has no choice." They laughed again. Jessica's stomach turned to stone. Tund was quietly working in the background, feeding updates through a secure channel. Every conversation between Malik and Keisha was being recorded. Every money transfer from their joint accounts was logged. Offshore transactions, fake charities, hidden trusts. The evidence was piling up like kindling. All it needed was the right match. But information wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was sitting in silence, pretending not to ache, pretending that every word didn't feel like a blade dragged across her skin. She had given her heart to this man, not as a businesswoman, not as a strategist, but as a woman who believed she'd finally found someone who loved her for more than her net worth. She had let him see the corners of her most private fears, her hopes, her battles, and now he was dismantling her from the inside out, as if she were just another acquisition, another conquest. By day 3, the air in the house felt thicker. Jessica could move more freely. Now her vision had returned enough for her to navigate familiar hallways, though she still fumbled occasionally for show. She overheard Malik speaking with someone on a secure line. The tone was brisk. "Yes, wire the rest to the Singapore account. No, don't use the Cayman Trail. Tund might flag that." He didn't know Tund was already 10 steps ahead. That night, the house was quiet, the kind of heavy silence that comes after too many lies have been told. Jessica lay curled in bed, back turned, breathing even. Malik slipped in late, the scent of whiskey and cologne wafting behind him. She could feel the shift in the mattress, the pause before he leaned in. His lips hovered just above her ear. "I loved you once," he whispered. "God knows I tried, but you were always too powerful. You never needed me. Not really, and now you're just a burden." Her heart clenched, but her face didn't move. No tears came. She let his words settle in the space between them. Like smoke, heavy, poisonous, irreversible. He slid beneath the covers and turned away, as if nothing had happened. Jessica stared into the darkness, her vision now sharp enough to see the faint outline of the window across the room. She didn't cry, didn't break. Instead, she felt something colder than grief settle in her chest. She had played blind long enough, and soon the performance would end. The dining room shimmered under the warm glow of pendant lights. The long oak table set with china, crystal glasses, and a quiet tension that curled beneath the clink of silverware. Jessica sat at the head, her movements slow, deliberate. The dark sunglasses remained, her expression unreadable. Malik had dressed her carefully, even styled, her hair wanting the image of the brave, recovering wife to be perfect. After all, tonight was his production. A celebration of resilience, he called it. He invited a few friends people from the board, old colleagues from the bank, and Keisha, of course, who perched herself confidently near Malik's right. Wine in hand, laughter ready. Jessica said little throughout the meal, smiling faintly, tilting her head to listen as they toasted to her strength, her spirit, her unbreakable will. Malik squeezed her shoulder as he stood to make his speech something rehearsed, no doubt. Some blend of flattery and veiled manipulation meant to ease his audience into the coming transition of power. The lies dripped from his mouth like honey, and the room, unaware of the rot underneath, ate them up. Then, as Malik raised his glass for a final toast, Jessica slowly rose to her feet. Her hand brushed the edge of the table, and for the first time in days, she removed her sunglasses. Gasps scattered around the room. Her eyes were open, focused, piercing. "Let's toast," she said, her voice calm, cutting through the ambient jazz like a blade. "To betrayal, and to every lie told in this house." The room went silent. Malik's smile faltered. Keisha stiffened. Jessica stepped around the table, gaze locked on Malik. "You thought I was blind, vulnerable, easy to manipulate. But what you didn't know is that I was watching every step, every whisper, every wire transfer." Malik opened his mouth, but no words came. She pulled a slim flash drive from her pocket and placed it on the table like a final chess move. "You remember, Tund," she said, her tone sharp. "You thought he was on leave. Turns out he's been very busy." Right on cue, the front door opened. Tund stepped into the room, calm, confident, holding a tablet. He nodded at Jessica, then tapped the screen. The room filled with audio. Malik's voice, low and cold. Asterisk, she signed whatever I put in front of her. Then Keisha's laugh. Unmistakable asterisk, it's almost elegant. More clips followed. Wire transfers. Conversations about account routing. A falsified document bearing Jessica's forged signature. Every word, every sound, played like a funeral march. Malik's face collapsed, drained of color. Keisha shot up from her chair, grabbing her purse, but 2 security guards appeared at the door before she could take a step. She froze, her expression twisting into panic. Jessica walked slowly back to her chair, reclaiming her place at the head of the table. "I spent my whole life building something out of nothing, brick by brick, bite by bite. And you," she said, turning to Malik, "thought you could reduce all of it to a signature. A moment of weakness. He stepped toward her, voice hoarse. "Jessica, I know," she cut in, her voice steady. "You don't get to explain. You don't get to lie anymore. You thought my blindness made me weak, but it only sharpened what matters most." She looked him in the eye. "I saw everything, and now, so does everyone else." Silence settled like dust. Then Tund handed the tablet to one of the board members seated at the far end of the table, who began scrolling through the damning files with growing horror. Keisha sank into her chair, her confidence drained. Malik stood frozen, jaw clenched, eyes flickering as if searching for a trapdoor, but there was none. The only exit now was truth and justice. The days that followed moved like a storm, breaking apart, chaotic at first, then gradually clearing, revealing the wreckage, and beneath it all, the strength that had kept Jessica standing. She didn't hesitate. The morning after the dinner, she filed for divorce, her lawyer delivering the papers to Malik in the very cell where he was being held for financial fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and forgery. He didn't speak when he saw the envelope. There was nothing left to say. The man who had once held her heart now sat alone, stripped of the illusion of control, exposed before the law and the world. Keisha, too, faced the weight of consequences. Sued for corporate espionage and breach of fiduciary duty, she was escorted out of the company in full view of the staff she used to manage. The footage leaked. The headlines rolled out within hours. CEO Jessica Owusu outsmarts fraud attempt. During recovery and blind justice, betrayal, power, and the woman who watched it all. Investors applauded her calm ruthlessness. Analysts praised her poise. Under pressure, but inside, Jessica felt something quieter, something heavier. She wasn't just a headline. She was a woman unlearning pain she had once mistaken for loyalty. The board convened an emergency session, only to unanimously reaffirm her role as CEO. No conditions, no hesitation, when she walked back into the office 2 weeks later. High, in her signature red blazer, her staff stood and applauded. Not the performative kind, not the polite corporate murmur. This was real, raw, a collective show of support from people who had watched her bleed and refused to fall. But the public victory wasn't the whole story. Behind closed doors, Jessica sat in therapy week after week, unpeeling the layers she had wrapped around herself. She admitted how long she'd been lonely, even before Malik's betrayal. How she had ignored the creeping dread that settled in her bones each time Malik asked about shares instead of her dreams. How she had confused partnership with proximity. "I kept making myself smaller," she told her therapist, voice breaking. "Not in business, never there, but in love. I wanted to believe he saw me, the real me." It was a painful realization, but it was also freeing. One quiet evening, her mother flew in from Lagos, her embrace soft but firm, grounding Jessica in a kind of comfort no boardroom could ever provide. They sat in the kitchen, sipping tea, the hum of the fridge filling the silence between them. Then her mother reached across the table and took her hands, weathered palms cradling strength that felt inherited. "You broke the cycle," her mother whispered, eyes glistening. "You didn't stay silent like I did. You didn't wait for love to return after it left." Jessica's throat tightened. For so long, she had lived to defy her father's absence, to build what he had abandoned. But now, she wasn't living in defiance. She was living in truth. The company would grow again. Her life would too. But this time, not as proof to anyone, not as armor. This time, She was building something for herself wide open, no blind spots, no apologies, and this time she saw everything. The late afternoon sun cast a soft gold over the plaza outside her office, warming the sleek bench where Jessica sat, alone, her heels tucked beneath her, a leather-bound journal open in her lap. The noise of the city moved around her car's laughter, the distant hum of construction, but inside the moment there was only stillness. She read the letter again, one she had written during a therapy session weeks ago, addressed not to Malik, not to the board, but to the girl she used to be. The girl with the two big dreams and the even bigger heart. Her own handwriting stared back at her. Asterisk, you will love, and it will hurt. People will try to make you smaller. Some will pretend to lift you up just to watch you fall. But you will survive it, all of it. And one day you'll stop mistaking silence for peace. You'll stop calling betrayal love. And in the end, you will never be blind again. Asterisk, she closed the journal gently, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. Not bitter, not triumphant, just whole. The glass doors behind her whooshed open, and her assistant appeared, clipboard in hand. Ms. Owusu, she said softly, the intern from Lagos is here to meet you, and your 3 p.m. just arrived. Jessica stood, rolling her shoulders back, the heels of her shoes clicking with certainty on the stone beneath her. The weight that had once curved her spine, bent her trust, was gone. She wasn't broken. She wasn't blind. She was grounded and ready. Tell them I'm ready, she said. And as the doors opened once more and she stepped into the building she had built from grit and vision, Jessica Owusu walked not as a woman who had survived betrayal, but as one who had reclaimed her sight, her story, and her power.